Hey everyone, I am the TheChosenOneLegend here, as always joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
And welcome back to the BunchaJokahs podcast, where of course we talk Nintendo news and whatnot. And obviously we're coming off of a Direct month, so things were a little quieter this time around.
That
But
was a lot overall, like at the beginning of,
yeah,
basically like a week after we did our last monthly podcast, they just had like a million directs come out all at once, so...
they did, yeah. They despite the fact we come off of a mainline Direct, we did have loads of little bits coming out. And we're not going to talk about all of those. Some stuff we've covered before, or we've played on the channel, like the Mario Kart stuff. But there's still stuff we do want to go into here, including the fact that they did a 10-minute Tears of the Kingdom gameplay reveal just a few days before recording this, so we've still got plenty to go into here. Of course, there will be timestamps in the description below if you want to check out the different sections of the podcast. But let's just start things off straight away with our first segment of the podcast, Can't Have a Podcast Without News Baby, where we go into the various news highlights of, in this case, March. And starting things off, as one of those many directs that were happening, we got a level 5 direct. And just like a month ago, who would have thought this would be a thing? I mean,
Oh, I'm so happy about it though.
it is. And you know, I've just been in the month or so it's been since then, I've been trying to perfect the level 5 pose, but I can't quite make it work. I don't think it's humanly possible. But
Matt is currently recording this from the hospital, breaking his hip in like 7 different places.
but it was worth it for science. But yeah, what did you think of the? Yeah, what did you think of the direct as a whole, Kai? Any big standouts for you from it?
I mean, it's kind of like you say, I'm just ecstatic that it exists in the first place, because
Yeah,
it's kind of like you say, Level 5 have been on a bit of a decline for quite a few years at this point. Their golden time was like around 2008 to 2012 when all of their popular series came out.
yeah.
And then since then, you know, they had some of the 3D games that kind of slowly dropped off. And then since then, they've basically resorted to making like mobile games and blockchain games, which isn't
Oh god,
the
yeah.
best. But now it looks like they're on a bit of an upturn. You know, they're now looking to open up some localization things again, and again they literally had a whole direct like we saw, and it all looked really good. So I'm glad that they have sort of turned things around for themselves here. I'm so happy to see it.
Yes.
And yeah, their direct showed off it's like 6 or 7 different games, I think, something like that, maybe 5. I don't know.
Yeah, we've got a few looks at, I think, Fantasy Life and Deca Police, I think, which are all both looking interesting.
Yeah.
Like, there's no duds here, I don't think. Everything, even stuff that I'm not going to get, looked interesting and was fun to watch. They kept up the pace, they kept it really well maintained, and they seem to have a good catalogue of upcoming games in general.
Yeah, I think I guess going through each of them in order. What one was done first? Deca Police. Deca Police is one we kind of already talked about last month because it was shown off mainly in that Nintendo Direct. But again, I think it's like a weirdly solid game. I don't really care for the RPG aspect. I'll have to warm up to it, but you know, I like me a good detective game. It seems pretty interesting with how they've done it. It's very recognisably level 5 based on the character designs as usual. They have a very distinct way of doing it, I feel. As well as they have like a very clear way of making their 3D models now, which I've noticed in recent years. But yeah, overall, like the concept looks pretty interesting. I don't really care for like the animal morphing, but apart from that, it looks good.
Yeah, it's on my radar. Who knows what that means with the amount of stuff coming out, but I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, right. I think I want to watch like the first chapter of the game or whatever when it comes out, and then decide from
That's a
there.
good
Because
idea.
it's not immediately something I'd pick up, but at the same time, you know, I am intrigued by these sorts of things. So,
Yeah.
I like the concept. What did they do next? Next was Fantasy Life, which did I talk about this on the podcast last month or not? I can't remember.
I can't remember if it was on the podcast or your stream. It blends together
It
sometimes.
might have been the stream, yeah, because when this first came out in the last Direct, I basically brushed it off as, well, it needed a farming sim. I've come to realise
Yeah.
this is not a farming sim. This is Animal Crossing, but also an RPG, which in my eyes
Yeah.
makes it incredibly underrated, actually. Because when you look at it, like, I'm pretty sure some of those animations are quite literally from Animal Crossing. Like, you watch them in the house where they're moving the chair around. It's
It's not
literally the
subtle.
same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I hope this does well because it is, literally, like I said, it's an Animal Crossing game with RPG in it, so...
Yeah, I've heard this
It's
is.
good.
I'm not sure if this is a sequel or a remake or something, but I know this existed before on the 3DS, this series, and people
Mhm.
tend to have a lot of good things to say about it. So if you feel like, you're tired on Animal Crossing, you've done everything that game has to offer, but you want some of that similar experience with RPG stuff in it, yeah, why not pick this one up?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, like, because I enjoyed Animal Crossing, but ultimately I'm not like an interior design person, and
Oh, me
I mean I
neither.
say
No.
I put like 200 odd hours into the game, but even then, at this point I wouldn't care to go back to it just because it didn't feel like there was much to actually interact with in the world once you'd like made your island. Um,
Yeah.
so having an RPG on top of it is like, oh, that's perfect. It gives you a reason to go back to it and earn rewards and things like that. So. I don't think I'll be picking this one up, but I really like the concept.
Yes. And of course, I think was next in the order was Layton, right?
It
Professor
was, well,
Layton.
it was this
Oh,
Megaton Musashi game. To be honest,
I
it's the
forgot
one
that
I
was a
didn't really
thing.
care about. Um,
Yep.
I think that the most notable thing to say about it is the damage numbers when they like show off some of the battles look just like Xenoblade X. So it's basically just scale fighting in my eyes.
Oh yeah.
So, there's your Xenoblade X for Switch.
There you go.
Unfortunately.
They've all been claiming for it, so clamoring for it. It's finally
Yeah.
here, kind of.
And then it was New World of Steam.
Yeah, which they didn't really show much of. We got sort of a
No.
bit of like concept art. They confirmed like the Japanese main voice cast for Layton and Luke, but in general, I still the fact that this is happening is still just ridiculous, but it's looking really good. I sort of like the whole concept of it, and I want to start seeing some more of this soon. Hopefully, maybe I don't know when it's coming out. Probably next year at this point, but it's looking great.
Yeah, the one thing I've learned is never trust Level 5's release dates.
fair,
But
fair enough.
yeah, it looks really solid though. Again, they've got that 3D style going, which I don't hate. I think it's interesting. Yeah, it's like you say, they didn't actually show off that much. It was just a bit of concept art here and there, and showing off, like this group of people who are making the puzzles, which was quite fun. But yeah, I guess the main thing to actually draw from it was just the setting of Luke's new design and his role in the game compared to Layton, because it's quite interesting story-wise.
Yes, because we have confirmed that this is taking place after the original three. So we are moving forward in the timeline rather than back like the 3DS trilogy, and Last Spectre, but which is definitely nice to see. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know what things are going to bring back. Like, are they going to do sort of like a connect things and take some ideas from the original trilogy and the second trilogy, the prequels, or are they going to just sort of ignore most of that stuff and do something completely new? I feel like it's probably the latter at this point. We might not get many callbacks, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's kind of odd because based on that trailer, you would think that there's a lot of callbacks, considering like how they were specifically referencing stuff from the other games. But at the same time, I get the vibe that it is basically going to be its own thing, a new era. So I don't know. I do like how the roles have been flipped, though. How Luke is now the one that is like the reputation of like Detective Luke, and then Layton's the one nobody knows.
Yeah, it's a nice twist.
It's also taking place. This is the first one that we know like is definitely taking place in America, because all the other ones were like vaguely the UK, and then whatever Azran Legacy was doing. Yeah, I wonder if like that'll come into it. If there's going to be any like weird Americanisms. Of course, it fits into the whole like Steam concept pretty well.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, I'm wondering about the gameplay elements where they talked about how, like, the world, well, I guess, like, the area you explore will kind of change and grow as you solve puzzles, where I'm guessing like as you solve puzzles, new inventions will be made that change the world around you. So I think it'll be interesting of like, generally the games, you know, they have like areas that you tread through multiple times, but they often have like new specific parts of lands you would go to do specific puzzles. But it seems here like you might just have one like hub area that you kind of rotate around doing different puzzles, and I don't know. I think they've got a good idea going. It just depends on how they implement it.
Yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on as we get more stuff in probably the next upcoming directs and whatnot. But what else did we get, Kai? What was next in the Level 5 Direct? Because I feel like I might have forgotten something else.
Wouldn't you like to know? There was only one game left, and that was the big one for me.
Oh, we don't need to talk about that, Kai. Nah, forget it. So the next news topic.
Wait. If I had my way, we were doing a whole video discussion on this. Inazuma 11 Victory Road, as it's now called. Yes, they've shown off some pretty interesting stuff. I won't try and go too in depth because, like I say, I could literally spend like a whole hour talking about this. I could go full Xenoblade on it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this game, like I've said, has an interesting history where it's the Inazuma 11 series has had 2 trilogies already. They announced this game as like a new era back in like 2017 or something, and then it's just been delayed over and over and over and over and over again because they didn't know how to do the gameplay. So, you know, a lot of us just thought, oh, it's just going to be cancelled or not come out outside of Japan. But no, it looks like they've taken strides here. They've been doing like development vlogs recently. So in this, we see a trailer of the main character of this game called... his name is Unmei in Japanese, I think. I don't think he has an English name yet. And I think his lore is that like he's actually not a player. He is a coach who has like, I don't know, some kind of physical injury. And you kind of see that the rival in this game is going to be the main character's... I think it was the main character's like son or nephew. I can't remember which one they said it was in the end. But Mark Evans, who is the main character of the whole series, specifically the first trilogy, it's his son or nephew because this game takes place 30 years after that original trilogy.
Right, yeah.
Of course, you've seen me playing it on stream. I'll talk about that in a bit. So there's kind of that. So they've kind of shown off a bit of gameplay and a couple characters where like you're part of a different school to the original, and you sort of build up this team, and you know the goal is clear. You've just got to beat this new character in whatever cup they create. But then not only that, with the story mode, they also said, oh, well, we've got a second mode in the game, which is Chronicle mode. And that is very interesting, because it is basically just a gauntlet of matches against, by the looks of it, like every single team in the series. And it looks like a bloody lot. All of them. There's 6 full games. Each one has like at least 10 story matches in. Most of them have like 15 or 20, so there's a lot of matches to go through, and that's not even counting like the non-story ones, which are probably also in here. So there's a lot. I mean, the fact that the original Inazuma 11 alone has like 1,000 characters, and there's been so many games since then, it tells a lot. So there's this second mode here where you can play against all of them, and you can recruit pretty much all of these characters. So that looks really good, how you can do all of that. They showed off a bit of like how the gameplay works, because again that was a point of contention. They showed off multiplayer, which is very good, and they announced that it would be localized, so all of that is just like really good. And that was about it, really. That's pretty much all of it, but yeah, that's my level 5 waffle over. I'm just really excited for all of it.
Well, it does look interesting. I'm not sure whether or not I pick it up will depend on what else is at the time. Because at the moment, like the latter half of the year, there isn't actually too much I have to get. So it could be on there. But it does seem interesting how they're updating it and trying to, you know, obviously take a traditionally touchscreen game and give it options to play more traditional football game in a sense, whilst keeping the elements in there. It does seem like an interesting balance. Now, it would be very interesting to see in reviews and such how well that works in execution. But everything about it is looking like they're putting work into it, which is it's not just some cheap thing to continue the series. It actually looks like they put a lot of. You can tell they've put years into this, like you said. So it'll be fascinating.
And it's because they finally stopped just like putting all of their development team on Yokai Watch. That's literally what it was.
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, because they put everything into Yokai Watch, and then I can't remember if it was either like not popular in Japan but popular in the West or vice versa, one of the two. But they just put all of their resources into that, so I'm glad that they're not doing that anymore.
Yes, yeah. Hopefully things are looking good. We're going to be getting a lot of level 5 over the next 2 years, they said. I think it was everything in that would be released by 2024, I believe they said. Could change, but that's a good sign at least. So we'll definitely be reporting on those as more news on all that level 5 stuff pops up. But I guess to move on to our next story then, from something that I know little about to something you have probably little knowledge about, which is we're on to Fire Emblem Engage here.
Yes.
And the Wave 4 DLC trailer came out, and we know it's releasing April 5th, which was only like 3 days after this is going to be releasing, this podcast. And just in the first place, how mad is it that this game came out like 5 months after Xenoblade 3, and its 4th wave of DLC is already out before Xenoblade. So they rapid fired this Fire Emblem DLC.
I'm not sure what to make of it. Would you say it's a good thing or bad thing that the DLC has come out like this? Because I have no context on like the game itself.
I mean, I don't know, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think Xenoblades has been like I would have liked Xenoblades to be a little faster maybe, but I understand why it's got more of a pace. Mm-hmm. So I think it's if you're someone who's really into it, there's been like 2 new characters each month basically, and then this DLC. So it kind of, I guess, it keeps you a good place to keep playing it constantly until the DLC is over, rather than like what we're doing with Xenoblade, where we're taking long gaps from playing and then getting back into it. So I think there are advantages to that. Although I haven't actually picked up the Wave, any of the Season Pass, because I sort of had my fill in the game, I enjoyed what I played, I was ready to move on to other stuff. I might get it later on, maybe, when more time has passed, but I still need to get back to the other routes and 3 houses, so I'm not sure I have the Fire Emblem time. But as for this story DLC which we're getting, my first time watching it, I was like, I have no bloody clue what's happening, despite the fact that I've actually beaten the game. And what this appears to be is, from what I heard, you can access this like a little ways into the main story, and it seems to be a separate thing where Alir somehow gets sent into like basically an alternate world where some certain characters who were your allies are now enemies, and certain villains from the main game are now your allies. Right, basically, this is an isekai, is what it seems to be. So
I wonder how that even happens. That's interesting.
I have no clue. Like, I can't claim to really have the Fire Emblem knowledge to know specifics. I think like people have got some information from probably the Japanese website, as they usually do, and I haven't looked into that detail. But it is. I mean, it's like a cliche thing. It's been done before. Heck, as you know, Kai, I've written something along these lines before myself. But literally the same premise. But it does look fun. I feel like it's a really interesting way to like we see like some of the enemy characters as playable units now, which looks really fun. We see like some completely different takes on characters, like one guy who's usually really mellow being like a really antagonistic, and it seems like there's a lot of fun opportunities for this, so I'm on board for it. I feel like this game, they could have done the route of, like a sequel story or a prequel one that tells the tale of, the war 1,000 years ago, which probably every Fire Emblem game has that sort of backstory thing.
Yeah, but, they do.
Yeah. They could have, told that story and done, a Torna, but I don't think they needed to. I think sticking with your main cast and characters playable and then putting them in this different situation is a fun way to do it. And like I said, I'm going to be interested in this someday down the line. Don't know when, but it does look good. So I'm pleased with what I see, even if it's very confusing and weird. But that's Fire Emblem, so
it is, yeah. So yeah, I mean it's an interesting idea. So Yeah, hopefully it's like good quality. It seems like they've got their fair share of like effort put into it. To be fair, you know, new battles, new cutscenes, that sort of thing. So yeah, hopefully
Yeah,
it's good.
and I think they said there's going to be like 2 new classes as well, so that's neat as well. Just mixing up gameplay as well as the story content and that, which is nice. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely something I'm really interested in one day. But there's something a bit more pressing that is on the back of my mind, and one of the reasons why I'm not going to get into Fire Emblem DLC, because it's not really that far off until Tears of the Kingdom comes out. And we got our first proper look at the gameplay now, where Aonuma sat down and just did 13 straight minutes, giving us a look at some new mechanics. And holy shit, I'm understanding now why this game is taking so long to make, despite being in the same world. Because I can only imagine the complicated logistics of fusing things together, and the physics are going to go into all this stuff they showed off, and it looks insane, doesn't it?
I just want to say, I feel so bad for the game testers for this game.
Yeah!
Because
God,
you look
yeah.
at these mechanics and you think, the amount of stuff they have to do, and the people, whoever's working on the physics system, the amount of bug fixes they must be having to do right now. Those poor souls, like, oh no, that is genuinely why it's taken so long, because...
It must
I mean,
be.
I guess to start off with like a slight negative is like, I kind of wish that they made a new world entirely, because that was probably my favourite part of Breath of the Wild, is like, oh, it's a new world and I'm not familiar with any of it, so I'm exploring it for the first time, whereas this is just a remixed version. But when you look at how much effort they've put in everywhere else, you can kind of see why they didn't want to make an entirely new world on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, a large part of what made Breath of the Wild fun was the amount of ways you could go about things, and how everyone's gameplay was different depending on what ideas they came up with to solve situations. And clearly this is going to be the same. They're going even more in on that. But just to get into it, the first thing that we see is the ability to like fuse weapons, where you can like attach things to your weapon to like make a mallet with a rock, or attach it to a stick to get an incredibly long weapon. You can attach different things to your shield and your bow as well to change up those. Like, it's just... I'm going to spend too long just trying out every item. I'm never going to end this game. I spent like 200 hours on one playthrough of Breath of the Wild, and I'm going to spend 400 on Tears of the Kingdom now. It's...
I'm already seeing the IGN like pages and articles and videos of like every single combination in Tears of the Kingdom. Like it's going to be unreal. But, I mean, to be fair, just one thing is I've still been watching the videos of like 15 facts you didn't know about Breath of the Wild, and I still don't know like half of those facts.
Exactly, yeah.
It's crazy how many secrets there are. So the fact that they're now doing everything in this game, it's like, goodness. I guess where do we even like start with all of it? Should we go in like order of what the video shows, or?
I guess so, yeah. Well, is there anything you have to say about the weapon fusing itself, like, and any interesting bits or things you think might be interesting to try out there, maybe?
I think it looks really weird, and I love it for that. Like when you see Link like with the boulder on the stick, it looks. There is a glitch in Breath of the Wild that people use for speedrunning, where they like get their bow out and it's not quite out, but like it looks like it is. I don't remember the name of that glitch, but it literally just looks like that, where it looks like it's a full-on glitch. It's not meant to be in the game. So the fact that it is like an actual canonical thing that they've made is really funny to me, and I don't mean it in like a bad way at all. Like I think it's a really good idea, and I think how funny it looks is just like it's just humorous. I don't mind it.
I love that of course we saw like the homing arrows in the previous trailer.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of us suspected that was an eyeball attached to an arrow, which is what makes it homing. And that is like the dumbest idea, but also the most genius idea at the same time. It's got an eyeball; it can see its target. Like, sure, why not?
I mean, those eyes are like one of the most useless items in Breath of the Wild. So the fact they gave them such a, I mean, it almost feels like an overpowered sort of idea in a way.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wild, yeah.
But yeah, I can only imagine all the things you can do with fusing. I like how you can do like double spear to make just a really long spear. I mean that it sounds somewhat broken, but people never give spears a chance, so I don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah,
the
like
possibilities
the
are...
Korok, the Korok leaf being a thing is going to be like really funny. Being able to use like the choo choo jelly from afar, the homing, like you say. I mean, you look in that menu of like how many different things you can pick. I think it's just going to be a really interesting way to utilize quite literally everything you have.
Yeah, like, you can fuse stuff to your shield. Like, I wonder, can you make, like, an electric shield that shocks enemies or something?
Oh,
Can
almost
you...
certainly, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
wow,
Can you
that's
do
really
anything
good.
that affects how shield surfing works or something, maybe? Or... There must be so many... Like, if you attach, like, a big plank to your shield, like you did, does that make an even bigger surfing thing or something? Like, that... Yeah. That is just... That alone is insane. And if we talked about all the possibilities, we'd be here for 2 hours. But
Yeah.
longer. But
Fuse is
the
one of
next
the
thing...
biggest mechanics, isn't it? Like that, I think that's more than anything else is like huge selling
Yeah.
point in terms of gameplay. And to be honest, when that comes out after we've both like beaten the game, maybe we'll do something like talking about our favorite fusions or something. You know?
Oh, that's definitely an idea there, yeah. And the thing is, not only can you, of course, fuse weapons and things, using Link's, magic arm, which sort of takes the place of magnesis and moving objects in this game, you can actually connect objects together and build contraptions like a
Yeah.
raft. We sort of saw the tease of this in the last trailer, but you can make like full-on rafts and vehicles and flying machines. And I know someone's going to make some really cursed objects. That's just going to happen.
Oh yeah.
But But literally it's Banjo Kazooie nuts and bolts people have been pointing out, where you can
Yeah.
customize your own vehicles and stuff. But like, I'm not going to be good at it for sure. I'm terrible at that kind of thing. But it's going to be funny.
Yeah, I've been seeing the Gary's mod comparisons because
Yeah.
we used to watch quite a few Gary's mod videos like a decade ago, and this is literally that. Like it's just putting parts together and stuff. Like nuts and bolts as well. And it's like you say, I don't feel like I'm a creative enough person to make really cool things. Like with that, where it was like, oh, you can use this to go across a river. That's going to be a point where I think, man, can I just use Cryonis? Like, is that still here?
That's the thing. I don't think it is
we haven't
here.
seen no, and I kind of wish it was, but I guess they needed to like make way for the new mechanics. I just love how they're really like, whereas in Breath of the Wild, the main thing was exploration and adventure, and all of your runes were just made to facilitate that. Like I say, Cryonis is made specifically to traverse water. You could do some crazy stuff with magnesis and stasis and everything like that. But then this game isn't about exploration necessarily, it's about creativity. And I think that's a really good shift that they made. Because of I mean, I praise the physics system of Breath of the Wild so much. So the fact that they made more of that, and they're like, you can make things. Like, we're not going to do it for you. You can create whatever you want in this game. Like, wow, it's on a different level. It really is.
Yeah. And then, of course, Link can just climb out of the floor like something from a horror movie, which...
Yeah.
the thought of... Like, I sort of assumed when we first saw this, it'd be limited to certain areas. And they did mention there will be limitations. But it seems like almost anywhere there's like a proper ceiling, you can use this, as they said, to literally climb up an entire mountain range if you get in a cave. Which... feels almost like it'd break the game, but I'm sure they've balanced it in certain ways and placements of caves to get around this. It will be interesting exactly how much the map has changed, like you were saying earlier, because it is the same place, other than the Sky Islands, but they did mention differences, but that just definitely seems like a new possibility for just certain ways people are going to glitch the game, of course, but outside of that even, just... taking exploration to another level, it's insane.
Yeah, those poor playtesters.
Yeah.
It's good that they have Ascend, because some of those tall towers I was saying on my stream the other day that like, oh, those are going to be so annoying to climb. I forgot that Ascend existed in one of the earlier trailers. Yeah, it's cool though. Again, good for traversal. And I guess alongside that there was the ability called Recall. which we've seen bits of. Again, I wonder how often that's going to be used outside of specific situations.
Yeah.
Because it does seem purely for like certain puzzles and getting up to the sky, but
Well,
you
in
know,
in the very
bored.
first trailer where we saw gameplay, we did see Link using it on like a rolling down boulder that was hitting enemies to then go back and hit those said enemies. So it definitely seems like it does have combat uses and whatnot. What will be interesting is whether you can like use it on enemies, or maybe that's an upgrade you have to use to be able to do
that's
so.
what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see the full extent of that. But of course, being able to use it to get up to the Sky Islands is cool, and just in general, the game is continuing to look beautiful. The music that we heard was really nice in this trailer, and I think an interesting bit here, for lore-wise, is that we got our confirmation that people were pretty much theorizing strongly anyway. But from the new machines that you defeat and the materials they dropped, we confirmed that they are Zonai, which, of course, was something from Breath of the Wild where there was like an armor set and a bit of lore around them. I don't really know much about it, to be honest, Kai. I don't know if you looked into it a bit more.
Not recently, but I like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I was like super into the Breath of the Wild like theory videos, and the Zonai was like one of the ones I was the most convinced of. I was like, yeah, Breath of the Wild 2 is definitely going to be about the Zonai.
Sure enough.
Because in the Faron, the Faron region specifically has a ton of like Zonai symbols everywhere and things like that. So although I'm not like completely brushed up on my lore, it's clear that they are going to be a part of it. Maybe I guess we're going to see like how they would interact with the Sheikah in ancient times and that sort of thing. So yeah, I need to like rewatch some videos or do some reading up on it, but I think it's a new interesting bit of lore that basically is the new version of the Sheikahs from Breath of the Wild. So I'm here for it. I think they are cool. The new machines and stuff are pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely looks like it's going to be changing up the enemies you fight in an interesting way, which is nice to see. We've seen a lot of different varieties in the previous trailers, so it's looking good. And the other thing that I do want to shout out here is just watching Link skydive directly from one of the Sky Islands down into the river below. Just immediately awesome Skyward Sword vibes. But just goes to, on top of all the physics engine stuff, how hard the Switch must be working to pull that off. To have that entire world. Yeah. I think my Switch might explode. I genuinely might playing this game. I guess technically, Breath of the Wild was a Wii U game. So when you put it that perspective, I guess you can see how there would be an upgrade there. But even so, Breath of the Wild still feels impressive to me to this day, even compared to playing PS5 games and whatnot. And the fact that they're going to be seemingly managing this, and it didn't look like when he was diving down from one to the other that there was like ridiculous frame drops or anything like that. It all seemed so smooth. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What is...
I don't know how they've managed to make that happen without the Switch exploding, like, because that looks intense. So I pray that not having an OLED is still a viable option. Because there was just a lot. I can only assume that like they might have gotten Monolith Soft back in, because one thing that we learned a couple months ago is that the way that Monolith made Xenoblade 3's engine for like making things work on the Switch was apparently like extremely impressive. I don't know the technical details, but supposedly the way that they made everything fit into the game without massive frame drops was like incredibly complex and ingenious. So I can only assume that they worked on Breath of the Wild 2 like they did for the first one.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Speaking of OLED,
and
take it away.
Yeah, if your Switch does explode from an OLED, you have a backup plan, assuming you are able to buy it, because we're getting the Breath of the Wild, well, Tears of the Kingdom OLED, and the Pro Controller and case as well, which all looks really nice. I'm loving the look of it. I'm tempted. God damn it, I'm tempted. It's paining me that, because I feel like we must be close to the Switch Pro at this point, or not Switch Pro, the next console, whatever it is. Yeah. They haven't really announced any games past Pikmin 4. It's been 6 years. It kind of feels like it. So part of me is like, oh, I'm going to get an OLED, I might as well get this fancy one. But also part of me is like, my Switch will hold out. It's just got to hold out Tears of the Kingdom, and if it doesn't explode after that, I'm fine. But, god damn it.
Yeah,
Looks
I wish
good.
they'd give some kind of insight because it really is the question at this point of do I, don't I? And if you were to ever
Yeah,
get an OLED, I mean, this would be the one, wouldn't it?
that's
It
it.
looks so good.
But apparently people have been struggling to get it already in America. I haven't seen it release here in the UK yet anywhere, but I can imagine there being problems. So who knows, even if I want to get one of these, if that would even be a viable option. So,
That's
but it
true,
looks
yeah.
nice. It's a cool looking console.
Yeah, very cool. It gives me like Skyward Sword vibes in a way.
Yeah, yeah, I've still got the gold Wii controller
Hmm.
from Skyward Swords, and it's definitely similar sort of gold patterning on there
Yeah.
in an element, which is nice. But yeah, obviously, the more we hear about this game when it comes out, we're going to be talking loads about this, so definitely stay tuned for all that.
Hmm.
That pretty much brings us to the end. I just do want to quickly mention here, as we've been going on a while, that the eShop is officially dead. Rest in peace, Wii U and 3DS eShop. Moment of silence. Moment of silence over. Moving on. So, let's go on to our next segment of the podcast, Games Time Baby, where we talk about the games that we've been playing this month. And I'm going to start things off with a very special one, Kai, because it's once again time for me to talk about the Kingdom Hearts series. It's that special time of year. Because I've been playing Birth by Sleep, which was a PSP game, but I played the HD version as part of a collection. And it's a prequel to the main series. And as you know, I've had a up and down relationship with the series thus far. I've never quite got the hype, and I've had many problems, but I did enjoy 2 despite that. I thought it was a fun game I had a good time with. And Birth by Sleep, honestly, pretty decent. I feel like it doesn't reach the heights of that 2 did, but what it does really well, especially as you can tell it was a handheld game originally, it has really good pace, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. And that's oddly impressive considering the fact it actually has 3 campaigns. Because it's one of those games, Sonic Hero style, where you have 3 different characters whose stories take place at the same time. You visit sort of the same places, and sometimes they cross over at certain points. And you can choose which order to do them in, and if you do them all, you get the true ending, the drill.
Yeah.
There's a risk of that to be really drawn out and repetitive and dull. But they just about manage to avoid that because each time you visit somewhere, you often go to a new place within that world. You'll visit and of course there's Disney Worlds. You'll meet different Disney characters when you go there, and that's also helped by the fact that each person's campaign is really short, like 6 hours each. Especially, I mean, I did go on easy mode to be fair, so that did help. But you really breeze through this. You are in the world, each Disney World, for like 30 minutes tops, which really solves the problem I had with like Kingdom Hearts 2, where you spend 3 hours just repeating the events of a movie before getting to actual more plot of the main story. So it really helps keep this really well paced. And each time, like, you sort of learn something like, oh, you might hear stories that one of your other characters was there, or you might sort of set up something that will later be picked up when you play the next campaign, and you sort of see where it leads. The way it sort of all came together like a jigsaw puzzle, depending on which order you did the campaigns, was actually kind of interesting. So it oddly worked. And whilst the characters themselves, I don't think Kingdom Hearts is really a masterpiece in storytelling. I have high expectations coming off things like Xenoblade, and people mention Kingdom Hearts in the same light. To me, it's nowhere close. I'm not gonna lie. It's very surface level. The characters are quite generic, and even to the sense that they're literally repeats of the main cast of the main games, which is somewhat intentional, but also feels like you're treading old ground that's been done better before. But I still liked the characters overall. It was still an interesting story, and what I enjoyed most about it in general was the lore stuff, like how it works as a prequel. You sort of got to see like how things led up into the main events of the story, what certain characters were like beforehand, what certain worlds were like before they got to the state they are in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. All that kind of build up, whilst overly convoluted at times, because it's Kingdom Hearts, was actually quite interesting, and I really enjoyed that part of it. So, generally, I had a good time with it. I guess the only thing left I should mention gameplay, which was fine. It didn't have any. It wasn't as fun as Kingdom Hearts 2, so it didn't have as many good mechanics. But it was pretty simple, and I played it on easy mode, so I was able to breeze through it really simply. there was some weirdly there was a Monopoly mode in this game where you could play a Monopoly board to like upgrade your weapons. Like, who is playing Kingdom Hearts and thinks I'm going to stop and play an hour of Monopoly by myself to upgrade my
in the game?
It legitimately there is Monopoly. It's not actually Monopoly, but it is.
This.
Yeah, it's like this whole board game thing, which plays where you buy houses and it is literally Monopoly. And I think doing it upgrades your items and your depending on what moves you've put on your person and whatnot. And I never went into that. I couldn't be asked to optimize my equipment and that. I did well enough on easy mode, but I played like one round of this and I was like, why the f am I playing Monopoly in Kingdom Hearts? I'm gonna have to censor that out, but whatever. It was wild. But
it's such a weird thing to include. I love it. I actually kind of like that. I'm not gonna lie. That's so funny.
It is funny. I do find it funny that it's there, and if you want to do it, you have the option. If you want to avoid it, I did, and I was fine. You know. But yeah, not like a masterpiece, but it was a good, like, short, well-paced experience that builds up some lore, which I'm going to be interested to see how that pays off in the future games. So yeah, not amazing, but not bad. And Monopoly. So
when did this one come out again? Do you know?
I think it was like 2009 or 10 on the PSP. Around that time, anyway.
Yeah, because I'm still like so unfamiliar with the Kingdom Hearts games, so I wonder like how much of the enjoyment people had is like nostalgia. I guess it's tough to say.
A large part of it, if I expect, but still, like, it's not bad. I still enjoyed it, so
that's good. Yeah, definitely.
So Kai, what Monopoly have you been playing?
What Monopoly have I been playing? I've been playing. I've been playing Regal Monopoly of the Kingdoms, because that's what I'm going to talk about first. So yeah, I bought a couple of games recently. Of course, I bought the Yorg, but I'm not going to talk about that. And I also haven't finished Octopath, so I'll leave that for now. Both of those will probably be next month. But yeah, I bought a game called King of the Castle, which I think I didn't realise it until after I bought it, but I think it's actually been like quite popular recently. Like, it's been a really popular game for people to pick up and play, especially like, on Twitch and stuff. I literally did not know that until after I bought it, so it was a really surreal experience to see that. But yeah, it's, I mean, of course you've played it on one of my streams. It's where I, as the person in charge of the game, is the king of the kingdom, and you guys, everyone in the chat or everyone who's there plays as nobles who vote on decisions and kind of have to overthrow me eventually. So, you know, it's pretty interesting. I think there's you know, some interesting strategy to it where, like, it's not like too complex, but you know, there are a couple factors to think about. You know, you can do things like making allyships with people, you can rebel. So there's a couple good parts there. I think it's charming. Like, there's a couple interesting ways how they... I love the games where, like, they sort of have ongoing storylines through the game.
Yeah.
Those are always a fun idea, so I like how things like that
It's
happen.
like the sort of the Chekhov's gun thing, where something small that happens earlier pays off later down the line, that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. It's just got a ton of those in it, which I really like. So yeah, overall it's quite just like an interesting game. The interesting thing to me is that, like, apparently it's really hard to win as the king, but I've literally played 2 games and won both of them as the king, so I think it's maybe just close. Everyone... Yeah, I think it's probably just because I don't have like hundreds of people in my chat who have no idea what's going on. So like the chaos is less when I do it, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But yeah, even then, like, it's a pretty cool game. I liked it. I don't know how many more times I'll play it, but it was a really good concept. Yeah. So
I did enjoy playing it on your stream just the other day. I think, whilst we won't go into it yet, obviously you're saving this for next month, but I did prefer the Yorg, I think. Whereas
I agree, yeah.
I think whereas that game leaned more into just pure chaos and you never know what's going to happen and pure humour. What's this game called? I forgot its name.
King of the Castle?
King of the Castle, that's it, yeah. King of the Castle, I feel like it sort of leans... There's elements of that humour, but it goes more into, like, strategy stuff. However, I kind of felt like it kind of felt like an awkward middle ground where there wasn't enough humour there, but there wasn't enough pure strategy to really have a clue what you're doing. Like, you know, for example, my character randomly just decided to assassinate one of the other characters, our friend Sophie, and I had no clue why or what happened to cause that. It was just completely random, which there was a funny element to it, but it sort of takes away from the strategy when your characters can do stuff like that randomly and you have no influence over it. So I did feel an element of that. It wasn't strategic enough to be all on board that, but it wasn't funny enough to be all on board that either. It was a bit awkwardly in the middle. But I've only played one game, and it was fun. Like, it was, I still enjoyed it, especially if you've got friends playing with you. You're going to have a good time with it. There's so many weird situations that popped up, and trying to like persuade people on your side as well was a lot of fun. We had my friend Gabe being a double agent on my side at times, so that caused even more chaos. And then I ended up getting hanged or whatever, so it's madness, but it is fun.
Yeah, so I do like the concept. I kind of wish there was like a short version of the game where because the game normally is like 2 hours. I kind of wish there was like an hour-long version because it felt like it dragged on a bit, but apart from
I
that,
did think the pacing wasn't as good, yeah.
Yeah, it's a solid concept though, so hopefully, the game updates over time and things like that, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to trying out that more in the future, potentially. But, and hopefully I can beat you next time,
Yeah.
I don't need to win, I just need Kai to lose. But, in the meantime, talking of kingdoms and thrones, I've actually been playing a game that was a bit of an impulse buy for me that I haven't really talked about, but you might have noticed me playing it, Kai. And that is ReZero, Prophecy of the Throne. Which is a game based around the anime series, of course, which is kind of a full circle thing, because I got into the anime because of our podcast. Back when we interviewed Sean Chiplock back in 2020, which, if you didn't know about that, go check it out. He, of course, voices Rivali and others in Breath of the Wild. Really fun talking to him, he's a really great guy.
Yeah.
But, sort of to prepare for that, I wanted to look at some of his other work. So I watched ReZero, in which he voices the main character, Subaru. And it's really, really good, and now I'm addicted, and I've watched the series like 4 times. I'm currently reading through the light novels, which the series is based on. So when I saw the game for a tenner, I was like, okay, I'm willing to try this out. And it's good! I honestly had a good time with it. I think the first thing to mention, though, is this is something for the fans. You're not going to be really getting anything out of it if you haven't seen ReZero. And that is because this is like 95% a visual novel. And even by visual novel standards, it's 95% dialogue. You're literally just reading through a story, basically, for the majority of this. Which, that won't be for everyone, but I think the most important thing in any sort of game that's an adaptation of a TV show or film or whatever, is keeping it true to the source material, right? And not feeling like some sort of awkward spin-off that doesn't belong. Mm-hmm. And that's something that they really nailed. This just feels like more ReZero. From the fact that the story is actually written by the author of the light novels, who also worked on the anime, so all the humour's there, all the sort of the tense moments and the big story beats are exactly as they should be. All the characters feel as they should be. It's really just like more content. It doesn't feel like offbeat or like a discount version of it. It all feels just like part of the wider story. And it's an interesting approach because it's actually it's basically almost like a Age of Calamity sense that it's a non-canon alternate take on events, where it basically, it basically takes the third arc of the series, which is sort of the latter half of season 1 of the anime, and throws in some original characters that completely change the situation. So you'll meet some of the same characters and see some of the same events from that arc, but they'll play out in completely different ways. And there's also a risk that when you add new characters into something, they just feel like thrown in there. But they don't. They really feel like part of the world, from the character designs as well, and just the way they talk. I particularly like this character called Tiga, who has a really fun relationship with Subaru, as sort of like a best buddies kind of thing, which you don't really see him have in the main show. So it adds a really new dynamic to it. And that's helped by the fact that, the visuals are all great, all the characters, and they have little animated designs that move as they talk and that, which all looks great. The visual areas of like the backgrounds look straight out of the anime. The music's pretty good. The full English voice cast return, and this is 99% voice acted.
That's
So
pretty good.
it's impressive. I really didn't expect that going into something like this. So it's really just like you're watching more of the anime in a sense. And I would say like that's a good thing in the wait because it's been ages since season 2, but we actually just got season 3 confirmed the other day, which I'm really hyped
Cool.
about. But whilst we wait for that, this is really good just having more time with those characters, getting more story in the meantime. It's just a really great way to do that for fans. I do want to quickly mention some gameplay because there are some other bits of gameplay, but you can tell, let's just say, where they put the budget. You can tell that all the budget went into getting the voice actors and that sort of visual novel elements of it. Because you have like these little chibi models which look very mobile, I guess is the best way to put it. It works, but it's sort of these sort of sections where you explore a little and collect information, and then you use that information to decide what you're going to do in a combat scenario, and sort of make a plan that you then have to play out using Subaru. And it does play really well on his strengths as a character, again the source material, where he has no physical strength or combat abilities, but he schemes and he uses other people to help him and comes up with these plans to get out of these ridiculous situations. And the way that you do that by sort of information you've gathered is clever. It's pretty basic. Some of them I sort of won just like I have no clue how I won that, but sure. Some of them were quite fun and actually involved a bit more work, but either way it's all pretty basic. If it was just a game of these sort of sections, it would probably be kind of meh. But as a way to break up the 99% dialogue in this game, it works well in terms of pacing and keeping things different. And whilst I think it would have been really fun to like go a bit more video game with this and like have you play out things more and make choices or something, especially as it's non-canon, the possibilities of like making different choices and taking different routes and having different endings would have been really fun. But considering that's not what this is just a new ReZero story. It's great, and if you're a fan, you'll probably love this. Definitely pick it up on sale. If you're not a fan, what are you doing? Go watch the anime right now. Become a fan, then get this. So you heard me, Kai. Do it for Sean. You owe him.
Oh dear, I'll find a way to watch it.
There we go.
Oh,
But yeah,
okay.
it was fun.
On one condition, Matt.
Yeah, what's that?
You've got to watch the first season of Inazuma 11. Oh my god, I'm going to talk about it again.
You know what? I will do that, Kai. Proceed. This is a straight up deal. I will make it happen.
Well, hang on, I need to find a way to watch ReZero first, but at that point.
We'll think about it, but this is on the cards now. Continue.
And yeah, the only reason I bring it up is because, yeah, that is my other game I played this month. Played it on stream because I can play PC games now. Well, I mean, I say that I played it on my DS, definitely.
Now, yes, of course, legitimate DS.
Yeah. So yeah, I was playing through the first game, and yeah, I just think it was fun to play through and talk about because it's quite literally like, I mean, I played, you know, I've always played loads of games since I was little. But one of the main games I played when I was younger, you know, sort of 7 or 8 years old, was Inazuma 11. You know, that was one of my childhood games, along with like Mario Kart and stuff like that. It was in my eyes, it was like up there with all the big ones, because I didn't know it wasn't popular. And I watched the anime on like TV as a kid, so that was always fun. So
yeah.
Yeah, it was just fun to play through the game on stream. There was a lot more dialogue than I remember in this game. I didn't think there was so much, but there is. But even outside of that, you know, I still think the game is quite charming. It is interesting how they attempt to bring in plot lines. I think the later games do a better job. The gameplay is as it always is. It's fun. This one's the classic. So although this isn't like the best Inazuma 11 game, and I don't think anyone says it is. It's one of the worst, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just that it's setting a precedent for the rest of the series, which I'll be streaming the rest of the trilogy. So yeah, I enjoyed streaming it. I was glad I was able to show it off. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I definitely, because in Zoom 11, I think I mentioned before, I only briefly heard about it in like a Nintendo magazine way back in the day. It's not the sort of thing I would have really thought to pick up because I, you know, didn't really wasn't into football as a kid and whatnot. But it definitely looks like a lot of fun. I think the even though like the story is ridiculously over the top and goofy, but in a fun way.
So crazy.
It takes itself really seriously for what's a really dumb story of just playing, school football. But that's not an insult. That is a compliment, because that is part of its charm and why it sounds fun. So I'm definitely fascinated to see where it goes in the next 2 games you stream.
It's so funny because all of the ridiculousness, in my mind, I've basically phased it out because I'm so used to like how weird it is. Like the first game, in my eyes, I'm like, yeah, first games are really tame compared to the others. And I forget that there was like 7 assassination plots and everything like that.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, I just forget because like that's so normal to me for this series. But yeah, it is ridiculous, but it's very fun. And it's like you say, the other games. Well, I think the second game, the one that I'm about to play, is it's the craziest one in the original trilogy. So I'm looking forward to seeing, even on my very first stream of it, you just going like, what is going on? Is this still a football game? Are you sure?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it because it's a fun series.
Definitely, yeah, definitely gonna be interested to watch those streams. And onto that note, actually, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you all for watching. But Kai, where else can people find you at? Where can they get those said Inazuma 11 streams?
They can get them at twitch.tv/Fascurreyn. I'm still streaming every Monday. And like I say, Inazuma 11 2 is imminent. So that's all going to be there. It's all going to be fun. It's all going to be groovy. And that's really about it. So, yeah. Yeah,
go check it out. There'll be a link in the description below. And of course, a big thanks to our friend Samm, our graphic designer who makes all our logo and thumbnails when I don't have to do one last minute. That makes him physically sick. It happens sometimes. But thank you once again, Samm. And thank you all of you for watching. Of course, we'll be back with more content throughout the month, depending on, we're getting things like Xenoblade DLC and Tears of the Kingdom coming out in the next few months, so there's going to be plenty of things to talk about, as well as our regular monthly podcasts and occasional gameplay videos. You can get that all right here on BunchaJokahs, either on YouTube or audio-only versions of the podcast on Spotify and other podcasting sites. Check us all out there. But in the meantime, we're going to go and sort out a deal of how Kai can watch ReZero and I can watch Inazuma 11. We're going to go serious business now, organising this. Take care, guys. Goodbye.
Bye.
Ha ha ha.